Welcome to another TurboCamaro.ca production. Today we're going to be painting the engine bay. As you can see, the ever elusive Chevy 250 engine has already been removed. It's being worked on separately. It's a totally separate project. Stay tuned obviously for lots of videos on that. But in the meantime, the engine bay needs some attention. As you can see, some of the original blue from the car is actually still showing in here. It was never rolled at the time, so I'd like to take care of that, as well as the very sad and tired looking cross member and frame rail, and the battery tray, the wheel wells. They all need some work. Mostly it's just the parts that I can't get to when the engine's in the car. So like I said, firewall, wheel wells, frame rails, things like that need some work. There's some things I really don't want paint on. I'm not interested in getting it on any of the wiring. I don't want to ruin my color coding, as well as power steering pump, things like that. So I'm going to have to be masking these off come time to paint. But in the meantime, we need to get moving on this. So about a month ago, the engine bay was power washed. It was just sprayed with generic degreaser and power washed, and that's it. So it's cleaner than it would be normally, but it still looks like crap. So we want to go ahead and continue with this process. So if you can, do the same thing: degrease, power wash. If you can't, you could degrease, let it sit for a while, try to get a high jet hose attachment and spray it with that. It'll certainly cut down on the amount of work you need to do to get it sanded when it comes time to prep for paint. And that's where I'm at now. So I've cleaned it pretty well. I'm happy with it. I don't expect it to be a masterpiece, but at the same time, it's going to look better than this. So do that, and then you're going to want to sand the interior of the bay with some sort of abrasive pad. I've gone ahead and purchased a assortment of things here. So I've got a 3M pad. These come in sheets usually at an auto store. You can buy them, I think it was 60 cents or something for a sheet that was 4 times larger than this. This is just a 1 square of the 4. You're going to eventually need some masking tape of some kind, or painter's tape. It's going to be painted with VHT Roll Bar Chassis paint. It is a heat paint, but it's pretty weak in that respect. But it's self-priming. It's very durable. It's a satin black. It is what VHT has for this application. They actually have their own video on how to paint an engine bay, but it's not as detailed as I would like. So that's what's to be used. I have 2 cans of this. It should be enough to do the engine bay. After scuffing the whole thing, we're going to be using a wax and grease remover. In this case, generic glass cleaner. Windex works. You can actually buy SEM or other Proform brand wax and grease remover, whatever your favorite one is. Those work great. In this case, I'm painting an engine bay for a car that gets driven every day. I'm not going to spend $20 on a wax and grease remover when glass cleaner will probably do the job just fine, especially on a chemical resistant paint like this. If there was the slightest amount of wax or glass cleaner left, this paint will have no interest in to spray over it anyway, so it's fine. When you're spraying this volume of paint, regardless if it's from a gun or a spray paint can, you're going to want to have some sort of mask, face protection. I recommend something like this. They're usually like 30 bucks, in this case Canadian, at an auto plate store, and they work very well and will protect your lungs. Other than that, you're going to probably need some snips to cut some zap straps or cable ties or whatever, and some rags to clean up all the Windex or cleaner. So I'm going to get started with the abrasive pad and literally clean every surface and get it scrubbed down. Alright, so I've gone ahead and scuffed the entire engine bay with that red 3M pad. I actually had to use 2, but this is the second one. The first one got tossed out about 3/4 of the way through. This side isn't bad, but you can see even on the second one, this thing is shot. Like, it's just full of crap, and it's not even that abrasive anymore. It's just worn out. So you gotta swap them out. If they don't look like this when you're done, then you're not doing it right. You're gonna end up with all kinds of crap. Even after a really quality greaser and rub down, it's gonna end up like this, just from the sake of you're basically sanding. So just as a technique here, I recommend doing long sort of rounded end passes. Just kind of, you're basically almost like like you're polishing it, but you're rubbing it down with this pad. You want to dull it up real good. There's going to be spots where you have glossy bits and whatnot. Mine wasn't that glossy, but there was spots such as here where there's the black paint, and then it's sort of where I sort of ripped over the edge here, and then the original blue. You can actually see there's a transition from the blackish gray there to the blue. You want to kind of make sure that's smooth. Just think about any kind of thing that you can see that's a transition anywhere or a change in paint texture. You want to smooth that out, because if you're spraying black satin like I'm going to, you're going to end up being able to see every little mistake that you've made. Also be very careful with certain things, like for instance down in here I've got the original Marina blue on the other side of the valance, and it looks nice still, but unfortunately that's not the color of the car anymore. So you really want to make sure that you get down in there. You want to go up and under things, making sure that every spot that you could possibly get paint on, or that you're going to want to get paint on, has been touched by this pad in some way. You really want to focus, of course, on the spots that you can see primarily when the motor is back in the vehicle. So in this case, the front here, the hood latch assembly, the fender wells, and of course, at least either side of the firewall. I'm going to also get up there on the upper valance as well. So you really want to make sure that everything you can see is well done. I highly recommend removing hood hinges and painting them separately. You'd spray them separately. You can do them on the car if you mask properly. It could save you having to worry about hood adjustment later on, but that being said, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do them while they're on the car, but we're going to do them on the car just because. So either way, next step, you want to clean this up. So I recommend a vacuum. Go ahead and use just a regular cheapy shop vac. Just vacuum out all the crevices. Some of the spots, like up in here, are going to be really messy because there's lots of material and there's lots of little places, and that's just generally a horrible spot for dirt anyway. So there's going to be lots of debris in there. You're going to want to go ahead and vacuum out, and then once you're done with that, we'll move on to the Windexing and actual cloth wipe down. All right, so you finish your vacuuming. Just as a tip, I highly recommend using a fur or hair styled vacuum tip, just because you don't want to cause any more damage, and a lot of times the hair can actually help sort of loosen anything that's sort of left on the surface. So go ahead and do that. I'm just going to take a break here on the actual cleaning and take a look at something. As you can see here, there's actually a crack in the firewall. It's not all the way through, it's nothing really major, but it is a crack nonetheless. It covers the span of about everything you can see there, so it's fairly long, but the only really obvious part is right here. It became even more obvious once I vacuumed, because you could see all the debris kind of got sucked out of the crack, and now you're left with this sort of a space to deal with. I don't want to leave that alone, even though I'm not so concerned about this cosmetically. It is something that could get worse, and then eventually I could start having water type problems. So what I'm going to do is finish the cleaning process in this area first, and then I'm going to use a body seam and joint sealer. It's a 30-minute quick dry black formula. I'll show it in a minute, and I'm just going to sort of caulk it into that area, and then it takes about 30 minutes, and then you can paint right over it. So it's a great product, perfect for this application. I think this is more of a cosmetic crack at this point. It's probably been like this for some time, and I just want to prevent it from chipping away or breaking off and causing issues down the line. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Windex on the whole bay, including this area, and then we'll fix that and get on with some painting. Alright, so this is the product I used. Like I said, Napa Body Pro Automotive Seam and Joint Sealer. It's black. I think it does have a bit of a gloss to it, specifically for repairs. OEM approved, if that's something that makes you feel good, and it works really well. I've used it during the bodywork process and had no issues with it. So all you do is just put a little bead on there. You don't even need the actual caulking gun. Just bead it onto a latex glove, even a finger of a latex glove, and just literally you can smear it across there. Obviously you could do a better job, like a smoother job, if you really wanted to. I'm going to wait the 30 minutes. This should be dry. I might even wait a little bit longer, because I'm going to be cleaning the rest of the bay, as well as starting to mask off everything. So it's going to take a bit of time anyway. Once it's done, you can give it a quick sand, just a scuffing with another 3M pad or whatever, and then clean it real quick, and then you can paint it like anything else. So it'll end up looking fairly good, considering the fact that there was a huge crack there, and it should be fine for years to come. So just finish cleaning the bay, and we'll go from there. So you finish spraying off the engine bay, so everything is relatively clean now. It's not a big deal if you want to go back after you're done masking and redo the fender and then some of the more visible areas, because you're probably going to end up leaning on or touching those areas as you're masking anyway, but the bulk of the work is done. So now you really want to go around and take off anything else that's left that you might have forgotten or procrastinating about, or covering it up. You can use tape, newspaper, plastic bags, whatever you got to do, cover these things up. For instance, power steering pump down there, it's hiding down on the ground almost, where it won't be painted, but I'm still going to cover that up. The overspray in this area is going to be phenomenal. It's going to get everywhere. Like, there's going to be overspray down onto the transmission down there. There's going to be overspray on the ground. So if you care about the environment, perhaps you might want to put some plastic bags under your car. Whatever you got to do, but you really have to control the overspray. That being said, I'm going to be spraying down into areas where this blue is down here, and you're going to see that that is going to get oversprayed onto the front of the valance panel. It could easily get overspray on the front here on the fenders, so you have to literally tape off and mask every single thing where any kind of air could travel to. So go ahead and do that now, and we'll see where we are. All right, so we've masked everything off here. You can see that I've used some blue plastic. There's some black plastic too, but for the most part, the blue plastic and the green painter's tape is what I've masked off. Just pay special attention to areas like wiring connectors here and there. You can see that getting paint on those would just be painful later on, having to scrape it off so that your wiring isn't all messed up. That being said, I put most of the sensitive pieces underneath this plastic bag down here, the pump, some of the heater hoses and whatnot, just sort of tucked away. You could probably remove those pieces and have to worry about draining fluids and whatnot, but I wasn't interested. So this will give you a good idea of a sort of a budget, relatively quick engine bay paint. Some people go crazy and they remove everything, and that's great. It'll probably look wicked, but not for this daily driver car. It's just not what I'm interested in. So either way, you can see this string here. I've actually just got it pulling the wiring harness here away from the fender. It actually worked pretty well. String runs up to the post or the pole here on the inside of this tent. So kind of Mickey Mouse, to say the least, but that's how we do things here. So you'll see that I should be able to paint into there. Might get the back of the grill, not a big deal. It's a satin black anyway, so it's not going to hurt anything. And everything else that could be affected, such as the power supplies for the headlights, are covered. Everything is good to go. So I'm going to start spraying right now. Painting's done. So I removed all the masking around the edges. I waited about 15 minutes or so for the paint to just sort of tack up pretty good before I took it off, just so that it wouldn't create any rippling in the paint when I removed it later on. So I moved the outer edge where there's a seam right away, and I left the masking of the stuff I can't really reach for now. Not to mention, if you were to pull that plastic up now, you could start rubbing the bag on parts that you painted, and you don't want that. So you can see here it is all black everywhere. It's kind of not the greatest lighting in here for viewing this, but you get the general idea. I'm overall quite impressed. I think it looks pretty good. It's not fully dry yet, so you can't really say for sure how it looks, but it's definitely 100 times better than it was, and I think this would be very passable for like a factory job as far as painting goes. Obviously there's a couple layers of paint in here from different paint jobs in the past, but given that, it masks it very well. And I think despite the relatively budget approach to painting this, it turned out great. You can't really tell, and I think that the engine's gonna look great in here. Thank you for watching TurboCamaro.ca production. Feel free to check out the website for more exclusive pictures and information, as well as feel free to subscribe if you enjoy my videos. Thank you.